In today's video, I'll be providing an update on the performance of the Northern Monkey Punter, one of the horse racing tipping services I've been monitoring since the start of the year. Wayne, who runs the service, has been sending me the selections each morning, and I've been checking the results against those he reports to his members. I won't go into the details of his service, as I covered that in greater depth on my previous video. If you've not seen that video, I'll provide a link to it in the description below. What I will be doing is giving an update on how the Northern Monkey Punter has been performing, so let's jump over to the computer and take a look. As I mentioned in my previous look at the Northern Monkey Punter service, selections are the most complex out of all the tipsters I've been looking at since the start of the year. Wayne provides a mixture of singles, doubles, trebles and anti-post selections, and it's hard for me to record the bets in the same way as I do for the other tipsters that I'm monitoring. However, what I have been doing is checking the odds available against Odds Checker at the time when I received this selections email. Wayne sends out a bet summary email at the end of each month. With it being a bank holiday, he's going to be working all this weekend, so he's actually sent out this month's one a few days early, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to update on his bets. When sending out the bets, Wayne provides the best odds available and the next best odds available, and he tracks the profit and loss figures for each set of odds. And you can see them here in his summary spreadsheet. As far as reporting goes, he covers figures from the beginning of December one year to the end of November the following year. He started at the beginning of December. Now I only actually started proofing the selections from the start of January 2021, so the first month I didn't include those. But you can see there he does a summary for each month, so he has the single bets, and then he does any multiple bets that he has, and he records those results separately. So there was December, then we have January, multiples for there, February, multiples. So you can see it's pretty complex, which is why I'm using his figures rather than duplicating his analysis. We carry on down into March. He provided lots of Cheltenham bets, and day 2 of the festival was particularly good for members, with Heaven Help Us winning the Coral Cup at 33 to 1, Put the Kettle On winning the Queen Mother Champion Chase at 17 to 2, Sky Pirate winning the Grand Annual at 14 to 1, and Sir Gerhard winning the Champion Bun Pro at 85 over 40. He also finished the festival really well, with Galopin de Champs winning the Martin Pipe at 8 to 1, and he advised that the week before the festival at odds of 25 to 1. We're going down multiples. There was lots of multiples in the lead up to Cheltenham, all the way through from sort of like January time up to the actual start of the festival. He was constantly providing multiples in order to get good returns on his festival fancies. Then we go down to April, and then the multiples. And so just to give you an example on these, if I just pull up one of the email messages he had, it's for the 22nd of April. So we see we had on the 140 at Beverley, the brazen one, and he had odds of 9 to 1 for Bet365 and Paddy Power. So if we look at those on here, we've got, well, it actually says 10.0 and 9.0. These are the decimal odds. So 10 in decimal is 9 to 1 in traditional odds. The best odd figure there corresponds to the Bet365 Paddy Power figures, which are the best ones that are available. And the 9 there is the 8 to 1 that's for Cole and Ladbrokes. And then if we look at the next one, the Dapper Man, 3.13, that's the 85 over 40 for Paddy Power, and then the 3 is the 2 to 1 for Bet365, etc. And the reason I picked this as an example is because it shows doubles and each way doubles as well, to show the types of bets that he actually provides. I thought it'd be useful to pull out the profit figures so you can see them separately. Now the last video I did was about mid-February, and so he ended up with finishing February with a slight profit based on his best odds, and a slight loss of 3.72 points there on the lower odds. And as I mentioned in the previous video, he expects members that follow his advice to the T to profit somewhere in between the high and the low figures. And into March, 25 points profit on the high odds and 18.5 points profit on the low odds. Now that was mainly due to selections at Cheltenham, and he really puts a lot of effort into his Cheltenham selections. So even if you're not looking to join up to his service now, I would highly recommend it for Cheltenham next year, if Cheltenham's a big part of your betting year. And then April, pretty much the same amount staked as March, but the profits were more modest, 6.18 for the high odds and 3.62 on the low odds. So overall, so far on his single bets for the year, so that's the calendar year since I've been monitoring them, it's 29 points based on high odds and 12.9 on the low odds. So as I say, members can expect to have profited somewhere between those two figures. Wayne does say that he thinks it's highly unlikely that members would actually achieve as high as the 29.37 points. If we then look at the multiples, so again, as I mentioned in my previous review, the multiples for February were really low. Now the reason for that was because there was lots of multiples he was setting up ready for the Cheltenham Festival, and anywhere the first bet loss got included in the February figures, whereas say if it was a double and the first selection won, then that was carrying over into the March ones. So all the losers were included in February, and some of them obviously the second selection lost, but then those where the first selection won, obviously the size of the stake rolling over onto the second bet was much larger. So good profits there in March for the multiples, and then slight profits in April. Overall, the multiples are down for both the high and the low odds. If we then look at the combined totals, overall for the singles and multiples, he's currently in profit of 23.5 points on the higher odds and 5 points on the lower odds. And the multiples haven't done well so far this year, but I wouldn't discount them from the bets, because if we look back to last year, you see this is his full figures for last year, and obviously April-May figures are down, and that was obviously because of lockdown for COVID last year, where he did actually have some overseas bets on the singles, not much in the way of multiples. But you see the totals at the bottom here, the multiples made nearly as much profit as the singles did, especially if you're looking at the lower odds. You've got 35 points compared with 31. So the multiples can make a big contribution towards the profits. And you see there that there's only about a fifth of the amount staked on the multiples as there was on singles, but they still contributed a large profit. So you can see why Wayne includes those within his betting arsenal. And the other thing I'd like to highlight here is obviously forgetting May because that was during lockdown, but June, July, August, you can see how much more is staked. So we're just coming into that period for this year. And the flat turf season is really where Wayne does most of his betting. So if you're looking to sign up to a service, obviously now is a good time to join. So let's take a look and see what effect the cost of the subscription has on profits. So the subscription, if you pay it monthly, is £45, or you can pay £200 up until the end of November, which works out just over £28 at the moment. Now I don't know if that price will reduce once we get into May, but it's certainly worth subscribing for the longer term because A, that's the only way really you can get a good feel for a service, and B, it nearly halves the price of the actual subscription. So anyway, if we take into account the £45 per month, so that's worst case scenario. At £10 per point, based on the high odds, the profit would have been £235, so you take off the £180 for the 4 months so far this year, would leave a profit of £45. And if it's based on the low odds, it would have been £51 profit. Take the 180 off, would leave a loss of £129. If you're doing £20 per point, so far you would have made £470 profit if you managed to obtain the high odds. Taking into account the £180 would leave a profit of £290, and £102 based on the low odds. Take off the £180 would leave a loss of £78. Now, as I say, Wayne feels that members would achieve somewhere between those two figures. So it's likely at £20 per point you would be breaking even and into profit there. And at £10 you'd probably still be in a loss-making situation at the moment. But as I say, that's the worst case scenario, taking into account £45. And I really wouldn't recommend that that's the way that you subscribe to the service. As with any tipster, you should really be looking for profit over a long term, not just a single month. And another thing you need to bear in mind here is that a lot of his bets are quarter point each way. At £10 per point, that would be a £2.50 each way bet. So the majority of them wouldn't be as high as £10 per selection, although during the summer months a selection could be up to 3 points. During the winter months his top stake is only 1.5 points. So if joining Northern Monkey Punter service does appeal to you, then you need to think about what your stakes are going to be, how long a period you're subscribing for, and also there's the obvious caveat that past performance is no guide to future profits. If you found my analysis of the Northern Monkey Punter useful and want me to continue reporting the tipster services in this way, do hit the like button. Over the next couple of weeks I'll be providing updates on the other tipsters I've been monitoring, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get notified when I upload them.